Hello and welcome to the Morrigan Resource Guide here on the Irish Pagan School YouTube channel. This is myself, Lora O'Brien, and I am an author and the co-founder of the irishpaganschool.com. So we are an online school which is based here in County Waterford, Ireland, and I have been a priest of the Morrigan since 2004, maybe around then. So I have done a lot of research into the resources that are going to be useful, practical, and not culturally appropriative for you as you study about the Morrigan goddess and you want to connect to her or them if you're dealing with Namorinya. So in this resource guide, we will look at books on the Irish lore. We will look at the Irish lore online. So there'll be some crossover between these categories, definitely, but I wanted to give you a selection of resources because I know people learn in different ways. We will also look at contemporary books. So that will be contemporary paganism or contemporary written, a little bit more scholarly in one case. And then my own resources. I have been creating resources for the benefit of our students at the Irish Pagan School. And prior to that, my own personal students who I was teaching before we started the Irish Pagan School in 2017. So I've been creating resources for, I don't know, 10 years, 20 years. So we're going to look at the most up-to-date versions of those two. So the books on the Irish lore. First off, we have Cathmachira, and I used to have to give the Elizabeth Gray translation, but relatively recently, as I record this video, the wonderful Morgan Daimler has created a full English translation of Cathmachira. This is the Battle of Moytura. Now, this is the second Battle of Moytura. We will go through the other options available to you in the next section. So just when there's links here on the screen, I'll also link below to a blog post over on my loraobrien.ie blog, where I have done a post which contains all of these links in clickable format as well. Okay. So next up is the Book of the Táin, which is translated from the Irish epic Táin Bó Cúailnge, or Cattle Raid of Cooley. And there's many, many translations and many versions of the Táin. If you're going for book format, the one that I would recommend is definitely the Thomas Kinsella translation, as you can perhaps see here on the screen. If not, it is a cover with well, the most recent version of this has a kind of a shadowy bull behind the lettering. And the other, it's not the lore directly, but the other one that I couldn't not recommend is actually a dissertation called War Goddess, the Morrigan and her Germano-Celtic counterparts by Angelique Guillermovich Epstein. And that was lodged with the University of California, Los Angeles in 1998. And there is a link there to order a print copy. And again, that would be below in the blog post that I will link to in the notes. Just click show more if you can't see it. And this is pretty much essential reading, I think, for anybody studying Morrigan. Don't always agree with her conclusions in a lot of it, or her comparisons in a lot of it, but the actual working through the lore step by step is very sound. So you can get yourself a print copy of that, and there are online versions available as well. So you can just look that up and you will find it. Speaking of online versions of things, we are going to first off recommend Cathmachira Conga, which is the Battle of Moytura at Cong. or otherwise known as the First Battle of Moytura. So there is an online edition translated by Jay Fraser, and I've actually put that on my own website as well. So you can go to loraobrien.ie and you will find the First Battle of Moytura there. It is a blog post and the full text is given out in that link. Then we have Cath Maith Tíre, which is the one that we mentioned earlier with Daimler's translation. Now, the reason that I'm given the Elizabeth Gray translation, I actually think Daimler's translation is better as it stands, but this online version hosted by the Celt Project at University College Cork, it has the old Irish beside it. So Daimler wasn't able to do that in the published version. I think it's worth looking at both, but that is up to you. The Elizabeth Gray version does not have a lot of the poetry, the Rosk poetry, which is actually kind of essential to the story, I believe, particularly when we're dealing with the Morrigan. So I would definitely recommend getting yourself a copy of Daimler's translation to have on your shelf, but it is handy to have the online version too, which the actual translation by Elizabeth Gray is, it's grand, like it's grand for dealing with. So we had for a long time. Then speaking of the poetry, we also have an alternative translation by native Irish speaker Isolde O'Brolachan Carmody. And the blog post that these come from is on storyarchaeology.com, which is a fantastic podcast. If you want to go back through the older episodes and have a look through that for the lore in general, you can definitely find things of interest to you. This particular article is called The Morrigan Speaks, and her 3 poems from Cath Maith Tíre, CMT, again translated by Isolde. Then we have my favorite Morrigan lore story, which is Táin Bó Ragavna, the cattle raid of Ragavna, which is a precursor to the Táin Bó Cúailnge, and is translated here on ancienttext.org, which is the old Mary Jones website, which I had to transfer over to a new domain name in case you were looking for it. And this translation is done by A.H. Leahy. So you can find that link there. And then we get to the Táin Bó Cúailnge. So this is if you're looking to read. The Irish transcription was done by Ernst Vindich in 1905, and the English translation was done by Joseph Dunn in 1914. And that one is at the Vassar University. So that is the cattle raid of Cooley, as mentioned earlier. Just to note, the Kinsella translation, as I said, is the best one in book form, but I believe the Joseph Dunn translation is the best one that's available online and out of copyright, but the language is quite flowery, so just be aware. And then for accessibility, and sorry for the deep breaths, you know, everybody is going through some kind of breathing issues, I think, in some form or another as I record this, so apologies for that. But I did want to add some audio for accessibility, and these are links that I have actually gone through the lore and read it, but also included some commentary as well. So Táin Bó Ragavna, the cattle raid of Ragavna, as I said, it's my favorite lore concerning the Morrigan, and this is a reading with Lora O'Brien, and this is the translation with permission by Morgan Daimler. You will find that translation on their blog as well. If you search for Morgan Daimler, you'll find a whole load of content by them, and it's absolutely worth looking up. But this one is hosted. It's a video that's hosted on my YouTube channel, my own personal YouTube channel. So Lora O'Brien YouTube. And again, there's a direct link to all of these in the blog post. You'll be able to click those links, or you can go and search them if you want to. You don't have to download anything. This is all free, accessible. I just want people to have good quality resources on the Morrigan, so they have no excuse for further or future bullshit, basically. So this is, enlightened self-interest in some ways. But again, I wish somebody had put together all these resources for me back when I was starting, because we had nothing like this for sure. So Táin Bó you'll see it comes up as, again, I wanted to give it in multiple different formats. So this is Táin Bó Cattle Raid of Cooley, a reading with Lora O'Brien, and this is the Joseph Dunn translation, as mentioned. This is a whole playlist. The Táin Bó is a long ass epic tale. And this was done again on my own YouTube channel, the Lora O'Brien YouTube channel. And it is a full playlist. There's 20 odd, 30 maybe, between 20 and 30 episodes, I believe. And this definitely start at the beginning. Not all of it pertains to the Morrigan, but it is very, very important to get the context. A lot of what you're seeing in neo-pagan stuff is completely out of context. And I believe for personal relationship and, scholarly understanding, whatever your bag is, it is very important to get the full picture. And then currently on this particular channel, the Irish Pagan School YouTube channel, I am going through a reading of the Dinhenicus. So that is the lore of the place names of Ireland. It's a reading of the metrical Dinhenicus with myself, translated by Edward Gwynn. So there are multiple volumes in that and multiple poems within each volume. Another labor of love that I am completing for all of you. They definitely get the least amount of views on this channel, but that's okay. I know that there are a lot of people who appreciate it and even need it and would not be getting access to the lore. So we haven't actually come across any Morrigan specific lore as I record this, but you just never know as you're going through the Dinhenicus, and it's one of the reasons why I chose that to do for a reading. And when you're going through the Dinhenicus, you just never know what's going to come up in a random place name connecting to a particular god or guide or guardian or, spirit. And it's really, really interesting that way. So get into it, stick with it. Again, there's a whole playlist on this channel devoted to the Dinhenicus. Contemporary books. So these are the modern published books that would be secondary sources on any lore. So first off, we're going to start with Rathcroghan, the guidebook by Daniel Curley and Mike McCarthy, who I hired Daniel as tour guide when I was managing the Rathcroghan Visitor Centre, and when I left, he got promoted to the manager position. So congratulations again to that, Daniel, if you're listening to this by any chance. But himself and a tour guide there, Mike McCarthy, have put together this guidebook to Rathcroghan. It's not very heavy on the Morrigan, but again, context is key. This is the place, this is the complex that includes the Morrigan's cave. And I just think that it's really important to understand the landscape that the Morrigan was literally, born in, basically. So the Morrigan, next up is, surprise, surprise, Morgan Daimler. I'm just going to note at this point that this section is quite limited. It is very particularly limited. Anything that does not appear in this section on my recommended list, it's not because I'm not aware of it. It's not because I haven't read it. It's because I have reviewed it either privately or occasionally publicly and cannot recommend it, cannot stand over it for very good reasons. So if a well-known author who is connected to the Morrigan in popular contemporary neo-paganism does not appear on this list, that's the reason why I can't recommend it. It is cultural appropriation, or it is, misunderstanding. Let's be kind. It's misunderstanding maybe of basic parts of the lore. It is a shallow relationship with the Morrigan, or it is a blatant attempt at cashing in, which again falls under cultural appropriation. So take that as you will. Okay, so on this list, we do have Morgan Daimler. And the first book that they wrote was Meeting the Great Queens. These are small, slim volumes, shall we say, very easy to get into, and leaning more towards the scholarly side of things, but definitely have a good mix of practice in them. And again, the most recent one about the Morrigan specifically, there have been multiple ones since then, is Raven Goddess, Going Deeper with the Morrigan by Morgan Daimler. I wrote the foreword for this one. It is a very good book, as is the previous one. And I highly recommend those two. If you read nothing else on the Morrigan, that will give you a very good basis in very digestible format. Next up is The Book of the Great Queen by Morpheus Ravenna. And this is quite a heavy tome, very, very heavy on the scholarly side of things. You know, quite well written, a little bit dry, a little bit hard to get through sometimes. It's definitely a commitment to read it from cover to cover, but definitely worth having it on your shelves for reference, if nothing else. And then we have the Morrigan, Celtic Goddess of Magic and Might by Courtney Webber. And again, I wrote the foreword for this one as well. I've known Courtney for a very, very long time. Courtney has a very good relationship with Ireland, as far as I can see. And this one is much more weighted towards, you know, pagan, neo-pagan practice. And there are places where Courtney's Wiccan heritage shows through. That could be a turn off for some people. It could be a bonus for other people. And, you know, that's up to the discretion of the reader. This is one, though, that I can stand over. Not perfect, what book is, but absolutely stand over it as a good solid source, particularly for people who might be coming from, let's say, the lighter end of things, the less intense, you know, academic scholarly side of things. It's not that Courtney doesn't get the scholarship right. I believe that she does, but it's just not where the primary focus is within this particular work. Okay, so again, recommended. And yeah, that's it. So anything that's not on this list, don't bother, to be honest. So my Morrigan Resources. So this is just a small selection. Like I said, I've been doing this for a very, 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 very long time. So on the blog, I've just put a link to the category Morrigan. You'll be able to find it if you go to laurabryan.ie and click on the blog. You'll be able to see the categories and the you know, the different tabs, or you can just put Morrigan into the search and you'll find a lot. I think there's over 20 articles definitely on there. I can't remember the exact number. And more, you know, I'm not posting on the blog as much as I used to, but I tip away at it. So it gets updated from time to time. I'll be looking for anything every week or anything, but every month, every couple of months, maybe there'll be a new blog post up there. And then on the website, I have put together a kind of a central page with just a selection of stuff, which includes a link to the Morrigan playlist on my Lora O'Brien YouTube channel. It includes just little snippets on some of the classes and stuff that's available. And again, links to just highlights really. So it's a nice kind of easy start as well, if you want to dive in a bit more. And then with regard to classes, then the best value, if you really want to dive in, I have a bundle of 8 separate courses. And like I said, I've been putting together resources and teaching about the Morrigan for a very long time, as well as continuing to develop my own relationship with that particular goddess on a daily basis. So the classes you can look at are Getting Started with the Morrigan, Introduction to the Morrigan, Faces of the Morrigan, Shapes of the Morrigan, The Cave of the Morrigan, Places of the Morrigan lore, which is an intensive kind of reading through some of the lore as well, and How to Build a Practice with the Morrigan, which is currently unavailable for enrollment any other way. That's a 3-part course, which is kind of a deep dive into the practical side of things. So the Morrigan Multipass is all of these together in a bundle, basically. So these 8 courses individually would cost $493 as things stand. So if you want to enroll in the whole bundle, it is $247 or $297. So you're saving almost $200 or 40%. So if you're a serious student, that would be the way to go. And those, when you enroll in any class in the Irish Pagan School, they stay in your class library, basically, my classes, my courses. And you can access them and repeat them and, keep coming back to them for as often as you like. So thank you for this wander through the ultimate guide to the Morrigan Resources with myself, Lora O'Brien. And again, we're at the Irish Pagan School. Myself and my co-founder, John O'Sullivan, teach there, but also many, many native Irish educators and teachers, from folklorists to historians to witches to any amount of practitioners. So that would be your authentic connection to Ireland, if that's the kind of thing that interests you. So slán go fóill, and I will see you in the next video.